I wasn't expecting anyone that night. Christmas Eve out here is usually dead quiet. The snow had been falling steady since morning, covering the ranch in that soft, muted way that made everything feel like a postcard. Peaceful. Still, I was just locking up the barn, boots crunching in the snow, when I saw movement near the dumpster behind the feed shed. At first I thought it was a coyote. Wouldn't be the first time one of them came sniffing around looking for scraps. But when I got closer, I realized it wasn't an animal at all. It was a kid. Thin, shivering, wearing a hoodie way too small for the cold, jeans soaked at the cuffs, sneakers barely holding together. He didn't see me right away. He was too busy rummaging through the half-frozen trash bags like he hadn't eaten in days. My first instinct was to shout, to tell him to get off my property. But something stopped me. Maybe it was how he flinched when I stepped on a branch. He turned slowly, like he was expecting to be hit or chased off. And when our eyes met, my stomach twisted. Not because I was scared, but because he looked like a scared animal. Skinny, hollow-eyed, and desperate. "Hey," I said, softer than I meant to. "You lost?" He didn't answer, just stared at me like a deer in headlights. I stepped a little closer, careful not to spook him. "You're not from around here, are you?" He shook his head. Still didn't say anything. "You hungry?" I asked. That made him freeze. His lips parted like he might say no, but then I saw the way his eyes flicked toward the half-eaten sandwich he'd just pulled out of the trash. That was answer enough. I nodded toward the house. "Come on, let's get you something warm." He hesitated, like maybe he thought it was a trick. But after a second, he dropped the sandwich and followed. The porch light spilled over him as we got closer to the house, and that's when I really saw him. Kid couldn't have been more than 17. Pale face, sharp cheekbones, too thin frame that looked like it hadn't had a proper meal in weeks. His hair was dark and curly, matted down from the snow. He looked at the porch like it was something he wasn't allowed to touch. I opened the door and waved him in. Boots off, stoves on. Inside, the place smelled like cinnamon and old wood. I'd been baking earlier, mostly just to kill time. I wasn't expecting company. He stood just inside the door, dripping onto the mat, arms crossed like he was bracing for something. "You can sit," I said, nodding toward the kitchen table. "Name's Cole." He didn't move for a second. Then, slowly, he pulled his hands from his sleeves and mumbled. "Jay." "Jay," I repeated. "You got folks nearby?" He didn't answer. I didn't push. Just grabbed a bowl and started ladling out some leftover stew from the crock pot. Beef, potatoes, carrots, the kind of food that sticks to your ribs. I slid it in front of him with a spoon. He stared at it like he didn't trust it. But after a second, he picked up the spoon. And once he tasted it, just one bite, he started eating like he hadn't had a hot meal in weeks. Maybe he hadn't. I let him eat in silence. Watched the way his hands trembled around the bowl, the way he kept glancing toward the door like he was waiting for someone to drag him back outside. "You got somewhere to go tonight?" I asked gently. He shook his head, still chewing. "All right then," I said. "You're staying here." He froze again, spoon halfway to his mouth. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You won't." "I can leave after I eat." "No, you won't." I poured him a glass of water and sat across from him. "You don't gotta tell me everything, but I'm not letting you sleep in a ditch on Christmas Eve." His eyes welled up a little at that. He blinked fast and dropped his gaze. I didn't mean to trespass. I was hungry. I didn't think anyone lived this far out." I nodded. "Most don't." He sniffled, wiped his nose on his sleeve. I didn't think anyone would care. That hit harder than I expected. "Well, someone does," I said. He didn't respond, but he didn't look away either. That night, I gave him a spare set of thermals, socks, and a hoodie that actually fit. He changed in the bathroom and came out looking less like a runaway, and more like someone who could maybe sleep without flinching. He stood in the hallway, hugging himself. "Where do I?" "You're on the couch tonight," I said. "It pulls out. Sheets are clean." "You don't have to." "I know." He didn't argue after that, just nodded and sat down slowly, like his body didn't know how to relax yet. I went to the linen closet for a blanket and pillow. When I came back, he was already curled up, legs tucked tight, eyes barely open. I set the blanket over him gently. "Good night, Jay," I said. He mumbled something back. I didn't catch it, but I heard the way his breathing started to slow, steady, and real. That was the first night, and it wasn't the last. Jay didn't talk much at first. He was polite, said thank you when I brought him breakfast, kept the sheets folded every morning, but his walls were up high. Every time I asked a question, he'd give me a half answer or change the subject. But he stayed. One night turned into 2, then 3. By the 5th morning, I found him out in the barn, trying to help with chores without being asked. He was clumsy with the hay bales, but he was trying. Didn't say a word when he slipped in the snow and landed on his ass. Just laughed and got up again. "You don't have to do this," I told him. "I know," he said, brushing straw off his pants. "But I want to." That was the first time he smiled at me. Not a forced smile, a real one. It didn't last long, but it stuck with me. After that, we settled into a quiet routine. He'd sleep on the pull-out, help me with morning feedings, wander the property in the afternoons like he was trying to memorize it. Every now and then, I'd catch him staring at the mountains in the distance, eyes distant. I didn't push. Not until New Year's Eve. We were in the barn again, this time fixing a busted fence post. It was snowing light, not enough to bother with a coat, but enough to make everything feel softer. Jay was holding the post steady while I hammered in a new bracket. "You gonna tell me where you came from?" I asked, not looking up. He was quiet a moment. Then, "Does it matter?" "I think it does." Another beat of silence. I was staying with my aunt. Kind of. She let me crash on her couch for a while. But her boyfriend didn't like me. "Why?" He looked away. "Said I made him uncomfortable." "Why's that?" Jay hesitated, then met my eyes. "Because I'm gay." He said it like it was a test, like he was daring me to flinch or say something shitty. I didn't. "All right," I said, hammering another nail. "You tell him that's his problem, not yours?" Jay gave a small, dry laugh. "Didn't get the chance. Came home one day and all my stuff was on the curb. That was 2 weeks ago." I set the hammer down gently. "You been out there this whole time?" He nodded. "No one looking for you?" "Doubt it." I leaned against the beam, studied him. His face was tight, defensive, like he was used to being rejected the second he admitted who he was. "I'm not him," I said finally. Jay blinked. "What?" "I'm not your aunt's boyfriend. I don't care who you are or who you love. You're safe here." He didn't respond, just stared at the ground for a long time. Then he said, "Why are you being nice to me?" That one stung a little. "Because you needed help," I said, "and I had the space." "That simple?" "Yeah." He looked back at me, eyes shining. Not quite tears, but close. "I didn't think people like you existed," I snorted. "What, grumpy cowboys with too much land and not enough company?" That made him laugh. Like, really laugh. And I'll be honest, he looked different when he did. Softer, lighter, like a kid again. That night, after dinner, he didn't go straight to the couch like usual. He hung around the table, playing with the frayed edge of his sweatshirt sleeve. "Hey," he said quietly, "you ever know someone who's gay? Like, personally?" I nodded. "My cousin back in Amarillo. His name's Derek, married now." Jay looked surprised. "And your family's cool with it?" "Some are, some aren't. But I always was." He nodded slowly, biting the inside of his cheek. "I don't really know anyone. Like me, I mean. Not out in the open." I looked at him. "You do now?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" I cleared my throat. "You're not the only one." Jay stared at me like he didn't believe it. "You're gay?" he asked. I nodded. "Bisexual, actually. But yeah, the silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. Just Heavy. Jay looked down, a slow smile creeping across his lips. Okay, that's cool. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he added, "Thanks for telling me." I nodded, and for the first time since he arrived, I saw something shift in his eyes. A kind of recognition, not just safety, but connection, like maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. The next morning, something was different. Jay didn't just help with the chores, he stayed close. Not in a clingy way, just closer than before. We fed the horses side by side, and when his shoulder brushed mine, he didn't flinch. He even made a dumb joke about one of the cows having a better winter coat than he did. Later, we rode out to check the fences on the east pasture. I let him ride Scout, my gentlest gelding, and he looked nervous at first, gripping the reins too tight but loosened up when I rode ahead and kept checking back. "You always ride alone?" he asked over the wind. "Usually." He was quiet for a while, then said, "I'm glad I'm not alone today." It wasn't much, just a small sentence, but something about the way he said it, like it cost him something to admit, stuck with me. When we got back, he offered to cook. I didn't argue, even though I saw him burn the grilled cheese a little and undercook the soup. We ate it anyway. Sitting on the couch, watching a dumb Christmas movie on the old TV I rarely used. Jay was curled up at one end, legs tucked under him, nursing a mug of cocoa like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. "Hey," he said during a commercial break, "do you ever get lonely out here?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't answer right away. "Sometimes," I said. "Not as much as I used to. Not lately." He nodded slowly, eyes still on the flickering screen. "Me too." I watched him from the corner of my eye. His face was relaxed for once, not guarded, not afraid. "You got anyone you miss?" I asked carefully. Jay shrugged. "I don't know. There was this guy back in school. We weren't a thing or anything, but he made it easier, just knowing someone else existed. But he moved away. I never told him how I felt." "You ever think about looking him up?" He shook his head. "Nah. He's probably got a life now. College, girlfriend. Normal stuff." There was a bitterness in his voice I hadn't heard before. It made me want to say something. Do something. Instead I said, "Normal's overrated." Jay gave me a sideways look. "Says the guy with a cowboy hat and a freezer full of venison." I smirked. "Touché." That night, I noticed he lingered a little longer in the kitchen, drying the dishes while I wiped down the counter. Our hands brushed once over the sink, and neither of us moved away right away. I caught him glancing at me, like he wanted to say something. But he didn't. Later, as I was locking up for the night, I saw him standing by the window, staring out at the snow-covered fields. His arms were crossed, hoodie sleeves pulled down past his knuckles. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, but didn't turn around. "I used to imagine places like this," he said quietly. "When things got bad, I'd look up photos of snowy farms, little wooden houses, places where no one knew me, where I could just start over." He turned to me then. "I didn't think they were real." I leaned against the doorframe. "They are. You're standing in one." Jay nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess I am." I didn't expect what he said next. "Do you think I could stay? Like, longer?" I blinked. "You don't have to leave." "No, I mean," he fidgeted with the hem of his sleeve. "Not just for a few nights. I could help more. With the animals, the fences. I can learn." I studied him. The way he stood there, vulnerable and hopeful, waiting for the world to say no like it always did. "Jay," I said, "you're already part of this place. You don't have to earn your spot." His breath hitched, just slightly. "Okay," he whispered, and something in him relaxed. Not all the way, but enough to matter. After that conversation, something shifted between us, not in some dramatic, movie-like way, just quieter, more settled. Jay started leaving the couch pillows messy in the morning, started humming while feeding the goats, started opening the fridge like it was his. And I didn't mind one bit. On January 3rd, I found him out by the chicken coop, sitting cross-legged in the snow, talking softly to one of the hens like it was his pet. She was nestled in his lap, clucking contentedly. "You know she won't lay you any eggs like that," I said, walking up with 2 buckets. Jay shrugged, petting the hen's head gently. "I think she just needed someone to talk to." I laughed. "You're getting soft on me, city boy." He smiled up at me. "I'm not from the city." "Well, wherever you're from, you're fitting in out here better than I expected." His smile faded a little at that, not in a bad way, more like he was surprised to hear it. Later that evening, I caught him in the barn again. This time, not working. Just sitting on a hay bale, staring up at the ceiling like he was waiting for something to fall out of it. "You hiding?" I asked. He looked over, eyes soft in the low light. "No, just thinking." I stepped inside and leaned against the stall door. "About?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "About how this is the first time in months I felt like I wasn't just waiting for the next bad thing to happen." That one hit me deep. I didn't say anything. Just walked over and sat next to him. The hay was scratchy through my jeans, the air smelled like dust and old pine, and we sat like that for a while. Close, not touching. Comfortable in a way I hadn't felt with anyone in a long time. "Why don't you date?" he asked suddenly. The question came out of nowhere. I looked at him. "What makes you think I don't?" He shrugged. "Just, you seem like the kind of guy who could if he wanted to." I laughed softly. "That's flattering." He looked down at his hands. "So? Why not?" I sighed. "Out here, people talk, and they assume things. I got tired of pretending. So I stopped. But I also stopped letting people in. Easier that way." Jay nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." Another long pause. Then, without looking at me, he asked, "What if you did let someone in? What if it wasn't someone from town? What if it was someone who already knew?" My stomach twisted a little, not in fear, just awareness. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, he didn't look away. "Jay," I said carefully, "you don't have to." "I know I don't have to." He cut in. "I want to." He turned toward me fully, one knee drawn up, arms draped across it. "I'm not saying I know what this is, or even what I'm ready for, but I know I feel something when I'm around you. Safe. Seen. I haven't felt that in, maybe ever." I swallowed hard. The air between us felt heavier than it had all winter. "You sure?" I asked. "No," he said honestly, "but I want to find out." The way he said it, quiet, steady, no fear in his eyes, made something settle in me too. So I reached out. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough. My hand brushed his. He didn't pull away. In fact, he moved closer. That night, for the first time since he arrived, Jay didn't sleep on the couch. He didn't ask. I didn't offer. It just happened. We stood in the hallway for a minute, facing the 2 doors, his to the right, mine to the left. He glanced at me. I nodded, and we walked into the same room. That first night, sharing the bed, we didn't do much. We didn't need to. Jay lay on one side, curled toward the wall at first, like he wasn't sure how close was okay. I gave him space, stayed still, waited, but then, slowly, so slowly I almost missed it, he shifted, rolled onto his back, then over toward me. His hand brushed mine under the blanket, barely a touch, but he didn't move it away. "Is this all right?" he whispered. "Yeah," I said. "It's all right." He let out a soft breath, like he'd been holding it in all night. Then his fingers found mine and stayed there. We fell asleep like that. Quiet. Still. Skin warm against skin under the thick quilt. No pressure, no rush, just two people finally letting their guards down. In the morning, I woke to the weight of him next to me, his arm loose across my chest, his head tucked into the curve of my shoulder. His hair smelled like hay in winter and something faintly sweet, like the cinnamon rolls he'd tried to bake the day before and nearly burned. I didn't move. I didn't want to. After a while, he stirred, lifted his head slowly, blinking sleep from his eyes. His gaze met mine. "Morning," he said, voice raspy. "Morning." There was a pause. Then he smiled. Small but real. "I didn't dream that, did I?" he asked. "Nope." He nodded and lay back down, cheek against my shoulder again. "Good." That day passed quietly, softer than the ones before. He moved around the house like he belonged there now, made scrambled eggs with too much pepper, let the dogs in without asking, took my flannel from the hook by the door, and wore it like it had always been his. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. That night we sat on the porch steps after dinner, watching the stars blink out over the hills. He was wearing the flannel still, hands tucked into the sleeves, hair a little messy from the wind. "You know," he said, "I never thought I'd get a second chance. Not at a home. Not at this." He looked over at me. At someone. I turned to him, jaw tightening just a little. Not from nerves, just from how honest he was. "I didn't think I would either," I said. Jay reached over and took my hand, fingers lacing through mine like it was the easiest thing in the world. "Do you think this is real?" he asked. "Like really real?" I nodded. "Feels like it." He leaned his head on my shoulder. "I hope it lasts." "It can," I said, "if we let it." The porch creaked under our weight. The air was cold, but his body pressed close to mine, and I didn't feel it. That night, when we went to bed, he didn't hesitate. Just pulled off his hoodie, kicked off his jeans, and climbed in next to me in nothing but boxers and a t-shirt. He didn't ask if it was okay, and I didn't need him to. He curled against me like we'd done it 100 times. And this time, his hand didn't stop at mine. It slid gently up my arm, rested lightly on my chest, not asking, just trusting. And somewhere in that quiet darkness, I felt myself relax in a way I hadn't in years. The next few weeks passed like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Jay settled into life here like he'd always been part of it. He learned how to measure feed by eye, fixed a broken hinge on the chicken coop without being asked. Even started naming the cows, stupid names, like Beatrice and Mr. Moo, but he said it helped him keep track. We fell into a rhythm, mornings in the barn, afternoons fixing things or riding out to check the fence lines. Evenings were quiet, books, dumb TV reruns, and dinner usually cooked together. He was still a terrible baker, but he was getting better. He never went back to the couch. Some nights we'd just fall asleep, arms tangled. Other nights, he'd roll into me slowly, searching for warmth, or something else. He never pushed, and I never rushed him. We moved like two people who understood the value of going slow. But things were changing. One night, we were sitting in the truck outside the feed store, waiting for a new order to be brought out. Jay was in the passenger seat, fiddling with the sleeve of that same old flannel. My flannel. Still too big on him, but he wore it like armor. He was quiet. "You good?" I asked. He nodded. Then, "You ever think about what happens next?" "Next, as in?" "As in this," he said, motioning between us. "It's been a month. I'm not just some scared kid crashing in your barn anymore." "No, you're not." He looked out the window, voice quieter. "And I'm not just passing through, am I?" That made me pause. Because no, he wasn't. He was waking up here, laughing here, touching me in ways that felt like more than comfort. Ways that felt like love. I looked at him. "You're not." He turned back toward me, eyes searching mine. "Then what are we?" I didn't have a clever answer. I didn't even have a full one. But I knew what I felt. "We're figuring it out," I said. "Together. No pressure, no pretending." He sat with that for a minute. Then he whispered, "Okay." He reached over, grabbed my hand, and in broad daylight, in the middle of town, he didn't let go. The next day, I found him out in the back pasture, leaning on the fence with his headphones in, nodding his head to some old song. When he saw me, he smiled. Bright, easy, open. It hit me then, hard and fast, how far he'd come, from that scared, hungry kid digging through trash on Christmas Eve, to this, a boy I was falling in love with. And maybe, just maybe, he was falling for me too. By February, the snow was starting to melt, and with it, something hardened and both of us began to soften. Jay didn't just live here anymore, he belonged here. The neighbors had started asking questions, of course. Ranchers talk. A new face around town, especially one staying under the same roof as me, doesn't go unnoticed. We went into town together one afternoon for supplies. Nothing dramatic. Just some fencing wire, dog food, and flour. But when we walked into the general store, I saw the way folks looked at us. Not with hate, but with that cautious, calculating kind of curiosity that people carry in small towns like this. Jay stayed close beside me, silent, his hand tucked in his pocket like he was holding it in place. On the drive back, he stared out the window. I could tell something was spinning in his head. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, but he wasn't. "Jay," he finally turned. "Do you care what they think?" I shook my head slowly. "Not anymore." He watched me for a second, like he was trying to see if I meant it. Then he nodded, leaned back in his seat. "I want that," he said quietly, "to not care." "You will," I said, "when you know who's worth caring about." That night, he didn't just climb into bed. He climbed into me, tucked his head into my neck, wrapped an arm around my waist like he was holding on for something bigger than warmth. "I think I love you," he whispered. I froze, not out of fear, but because it felt real. Heavy in a way I hadn't been ready for, and yet I had been waiting for it. "I think I love you too," I said. He exhaled shakily, like it was the answer he'd been afraid to believe was possible. And for the first time since that snowy Christmas Eve, I felt like we weren't just surviving something anymore. We were building something. Together. Spring came late that year. The snow clung to the edges of the fields like it didn't want to leave. But the sun was stronger now. You could feel it in the mornings. Brighter light through the kitchen window. The soft dripping of icicles melting off the eaves. Jay had taken to waking up before me, which surprised us both. He'd be out on the porch with a mug of coffee and my old wool blanket around his shoulders, watching the horizon like he was waiting for something. One morning, I joined him. He didn't say anything at first, just passed me the second mug he'd poured and leaned into my side. "I used to think I didn't deserve this," he said after a while. "Not the house, or the quiet, or even someone like you." I looked over, caught the way the morning light touched the curve of his jaw, the tired but open expression in his eyes. "You deserve more than this," I said, "but I'm glad this is where it started." He gave me a small smile. "You ever think about the first night?" he asked. "The dumpster, the snow, me probably smelling like hell." I chuckled. "You looked like hell too." He nudged me with his elbow. "Thanks. But yeah," I added, turning a little more toward him. "I think about it, a lot, about what would have happened if I hadn't gone out to lock the barn that night, if I just stayed inside." "I think about that too," he said quietly. "And?" He leaned his head on my shoulder. "Then I remember that you didn't, that you came outside, that you saw me, and that you didn't walk away." We sat there for a long time. A few weeks later, Jay got his GED. We celebrated with a cake I baked badly, and he pretended to like. He started talking about online classes, maybe animal science, maybe welding. He wasn't sure yet, but for the first time, I could see him picturing a future, and it included staying. One night, while we were lying in bed, I asked, "You think you'll ever leave?" He didn't answer right away, just traced a lazy circle on my chest with one finger. "Maybe someday," he said, But only if you're coming with me. I smiled into the dark. Deal. That spring, he planted wildflowers behind the barn. Said he wanted something bright to look at. By June, they were blooming. And by then, everyone in town had stopped asking questions. Because they saw us. And more importantly, we saw each other every damn day.